When you get yourself off of the beaten path and into the Everglades, you start to find things you wouldn't normally see. The thoughtful observer will see things that nobody else will see. They'll hear things that nobody else will hear. You hear stories of the skunk ape out here.
Miccosukee Seminole Indians referred to them as the old people.
Picture a person hunched over, 250 pounds, covered with 2 to 3 inch hair.
Large, hairy, walked like a man, didn't wear clothes.
It's my understanding he's nothing more than a Bigfoot that smells real bad.
If you go into an area where skunk apes are living, you're gonna smell it.
It smelled like a horse stable that had not been cleaned for a few weeks.
Real similar to a skunk. Rotten eggs.
It's so strong that you can smell it from miles away.
The first time I heard of the skunk ape, I laughed and I said, well, you know, that's actually ridiculous. I began to hear from other people, very credible people. I started looking at it and listening to people with a different ear.
If people care to do even the slightest bit of research, they will arrive at the conclusion that a creature does exist.
These people that say things like skunk ape doesn't exist, you could be putting a species at risk.
Well, I saw several photographs. It was hardly anything conclusive. It could have easily been somebody in a gorilla suit.
Well, they're either really bad photographers or they're trying to hide something.
My name's Dave Sheely, and I'm a skunk ape researcher here in the Big Cypress National Preserve. I run Skunk Ape Research Headquarters, which is located on Highway 41. When I was 10 years old, I saw a skunk ape. I got up early one morning with my brother Jack before school, and we took a walk in the woods. We weren't too far back off the property, and he saw something in the distance, and he grabbed me and picked me up where I could see out over the grass, and about 100 yards away was exactly what had been described to me many times growing up as being a skunk ape. About 7 feet tall, covered with hair, walking on 2 legs. That's kind of how it got started. It seems like ever since that day, I've been hunting skunk apes.
Kelly, I have a brown Ford Explorer just driving around the back to view the campsite.
Turn this off. It was like where those palm trees are right there. That was when I was 10 years old. And then in 1997, in the same area, is where I took the photograph. Bob Carr was brought in by the Unsolved Mysteries show, so I gave pictures to Bob Carr to look at.
I've been trained as an archaeologist working principally in Florida, so I've had many years of experience excavating and documenting and helping to preserve significant sites across Florida. At some point we were contacted by David Sheely, and he showed us photos that he had. We couldn't arrive at a final conclusion just based on his comments and his photographs. I saw a video that David Sheely himself had taken. I looked at that. I was pretty dubious. I thought it was likely a hoax, that it was probably his very large brother walking around in an ape suit. That's just the way it is. There are just people who enjoy doing pranks. Sometimes the motivation is attention, sometimes the motivation is money. Now, if you have a place for people to go and see, and you have a Bigfoot sighting, that could really stimulate visitations to your place, to your store, to your restaurant. That has to raise your suspicions when you just hear some of the accounts.
And this is the gift shop. And then we got the skunk ape t-shirts here, and they're a big seller. They pretty much keep the lights on here. We sell alligator heads, Skunk Ape coolies. Spring break's coming, these are gonna be big. Skunk Ape coffee cups, glow cups, Bigfoot Band-Aids, Bigfoot lunch boxes. This makes Bigfoot sounds.
Is that what the skunk ape sounds like?
A little bit, yeah, a little bit, yeah. For me, there's just so much to do. I can go hunting this afternoon, I could go fishing tonight, and and have a campfire. Just nice, just nice. It's not a rat race, a bunch of people hurrying around and horns blowing and a bunch of concrete and asphalt. There's a skunk ape there. 2 skunk apes. I've been using this trail since as far back as I can remember. I've been down it 10,000 times, maybe more. It's a smuggler's trail, a lot of smuggling over the years, marijuana smuggling, moonshine running. So this, as a kid, this is where me and my brother saw the skunk apes when we were young. It was feeding on some grasses, and then it just began to walk away. And that's when I took the 27 photographs. That drew a lot of attention. That was world news around the world.
For years, there have been rumors of mysterious creatures lurking in the Florida swamplands.
That's kept Floridians curious over the years. What can the dark shadow passing through the woods really be?
The probability of a human-like creature or monkey living in the Everglades was so intriguing. I believe it was on the front page of the local paper. The whole world went skunk ape crazy. I didn't want to leave. I didn't want to be bought out. When you grow up in the Everglades and you see on TV and you read in books about projects to save the Everglades and how the Everglades needs to be restored, and then the final kicker, nobody should live in the Everglades. The Everglades should have no development. That's where I live, and I still live. But the Park Service, government, bought the Big Cypress Preserve in my lifetime, and there were a lot of homes, so they started buying people out. I have a standing offer of $1 million to leave pretty much all my life, just to go. This piece of property here was bought in 1961 with my dad and mother thought they would have a campground here where people from other countries could come and stay. Well, when the government took over, they didn't want us here, so they went into this unfair competition, and what they did was they built 6 campgrounds surrounding us, and they tore down our signs and they put up their signs, and they offered for free what we charged for, but we complied with all the state regulations. We were licensed, we paid taxes, we had to charge a fee. They steal our idea. They steal everything my family ever had, every idea. They take it and then they act like it's a real novelty, like, look what we're doing. It was like we didn't even exist. And talking with the Indians, with the traditional Seminole tribe, they said, at one time, David, they didn't think we existed either. So, and you have to, like, do something. And the skunk ape was a big deal. People know about the skunk ape. News stations camped out for days broadcasting from my parking lot. But if I called them up and said, look, the government's stealing my customers, they're crooked, none of them would have showed up. None of them. With the skunk ape, I was able to talk about the skunk ape, but I was also able to let people know that I had some bigger issues other than just the skunk ape on my mind as well. Okay?
Doing what I do is to get people who've never been out and bring them out and show them that there is something special out here, something to be protected, something to be photographed. As far as the skunk ape is concerned, I share the lore with my family, my friends, the guests, the people that come onto my workshops, but I've yet to see one. I think it's fun to believe that there's something out here. I can't see it. You'd have to see one or two or more sometime. If I'm a good photographer and I see one, it won't be a blurry photograph.
Right now we're walking through the Long Key Preserve. It's a Broward County park, and it's a beautiful place. They preserve the natural hammock and the many archaeological sites that occur here. Interestingly enough, this is also the location of several Bigfoot skunk ape sightings in the early 1970s. I spoke to one woman who lived here all of her life and talked about how her horses had been systematically killed. The people in the area of Davie at that time really believed something or someone was going around to these fields and killing these animals. They also saw tracks, and there were even sightings, including sightings by police officers. When you look at the sightings, what's interesting, having interviewed several people, you find that they tend to cluster in different areas without these people talking to one another, thus not knowing that the other person is basically identifying the same location. It doesn't mean that it's real. It could mean that somebody in a gorilla suit is taking some chances running around. And that's a good question, by the way, to ask David Shealy, because he will tell you, I'm sure, that if you were to put on a gorilla suit in the Big Cypress where he lives, everybody owns a gun. You are really taking a chance walking around pretending to be a skunk ape.
This is good. Okay, so then we got that. And then this is the field guide that I wrote. This one's not for sale, but the rest of them are. Lima beans are the #1 bait. And if you ain't got lima beans, stay home.
So tell me about Ted Riggs.
Ted Riggs. Mr. Riggs is a tracker. I believe he was in the service. He's probably one of the best trackers in the world, if not the best. I've always liked him. I think he's a good man. I think he's an honest man. I don't think he has anything to gain by supporting the existence of a skunk ape.
My name is T.L. Riggs, and now, well into my 90s, I have spent 67 years in the Everglades, working as a professional land surveyor and explorer. Anybody can say, oh yeah, I saw one of those, yeah. But it's not true until you produce some evidence.
I've worked with tracker T.L. Riggs. He actually went out on his own. He did find tracks. He made casts. I looked at him. There's absolutely no doubt that it's a cast of a real footprint.
I found enough evidence to convince myself that this wasn't just a myth, it was real. I had heard there had been some sightings out near the Turner River Road on Tamiami Trail.
Turner River Road runs through Turner River Swamp. Turner River Swamp is this area where I saw the skunk ape go into. It's just super habitat. It really could support large primates. There's enough food source there.
The Brazilian pepper trees, the branches kind of intermingled across the trail. They would all have snagged this very fine hair, finer than the thinnest human hair that you can find, kept them in refrigeration all these years. We have sent them off with the help of Bob Carr, and the message report that came back was no known species. That's good enough for me.
It should be kept in mind that there's a big difference between evidence and proof. Footprints, cast of footprints, hair, photographs. All of these are lines of evidence, but certainly don't raise themselves to the level of scientific proof. Nobody's brought in a skeleton, nobody's brought in a tooth, things that could allow them to categorically identify that this is a real biological species.
There's so many people who said, "You're crazy, you're looking for something that doesn't exist." And all you have to do is tell me that something doesn't exist, and I am obligated to prove that it does exist.
I think that people just need to let the information come as it comes, and don't be so dismissive of something that you really shouldn't even be discussing with someone, as you haven't done the research.
I think the skunk ape is an interesting part of the mystery that is the Everglades and that is the Big Cypress.
People come here from around the world, not just hunting for skunk apes, but to visit the Everglades and contemplate the possibility that there could be something here that nobody's really knows about yet. And so people know about the Everglades, and that's a good thing. People know that I live here and I don't plan on leaving. That's probably a good thing too.
The Everglades, it's so different than the Smoky Mountains or the Grand Canyon. You got to get into it. You have to explore it. You have to experience it.
I compared the swamp ape to the Florida panther. All the years that I've been out there, 60-odd years in the glades, I had never seen a panther. And you'd think that someone who spent as much time in the swamps as I did would surely inadvertently come across a panther in the distance or crossing a road or something, and I hadn't. So it did not seem very strange to me that the swamp ape has been there all along, and I had never seen it.
It would be like a ghost hunter seeing a ghost. You know, you prepare yourself, that's what you're looking for. You know, on a good day you're going to see one, but when you see it, it's overwhelming. If nothing else, I would just like the opportunity to be here and do the research, you know, for the rest of my life. The Skunk Ape Research Center is going to be here because there's just, you can't stop a train.